Man, that is crazy. All right, no more of that. There we go. All right. So everybody's on here. I'm sorry because it's loud and I'm not really prepared yet, but I still might acknowledge the chat if I see anything on there. Let me see. Let's mute this. Hey, looks like it. But this is not the one I had. That is insane. How does that see through? Oh my goodness. What was I on? Oh yeah. Meaning of apostles and apostello. Apostello. Which is actually pretty cool in 2 Peter. What does this say? An apostle or apostle. Wow, that's horrible. But let's see here. A delegate messenger, one sent forth with orders. Pretty interesting. Someone with the message. And then you have, what was it? That was another cool one. It was a slave, I think, a servant. Yeah. That doesn't actually necessarily mean a servant. It's someone that gives themselves, like in terms of servant to the Lord or the God or to a cause. It's a, let me see. It's a metaphor for one who gives oneself up. Or basically, it's almost like a devotion to a cause other than yours without any consideration for yours. It's putting something else above you. It's similar to raising something above yourself, exalting it. If you exalt the God, it might be similar. Anyways, that's enough on that. What was I going to check out? Let's see. I had someone ask about Ethereum and ENS, or Ethereum name service. Ethereum name service. I don't know how to say it. Let's see here. No. So ENS is the Ethereum name service, and yes, I do. I have played on CryptoKitties. If you saw that, it's kind of embarrassing, but it is what it is. They were addicting. So yeah, ENS, pretty interesting. So let's check a name. How about YouTube? HowTube. I'm sure they'll have that. How-to.it is available. So this is pretty much what you do. I'm not getting this. I would open with my MetaMask account, and then you can actually get it. I might show that later on. You need to make an account first, that's for sure. For anybody that hasn't used an Ethereum wallet or a cryptocurrency wallet, it's cool, man. Even if you just want to check it out and look into the technology, it's interesting. If you like learning or you like new things, whether you think it's a scam or not, or whether you think it's stupid, doesn't really matter. It's interesting to read about. Blockchain's not going anywhere. Ethereum, Bitcoin, Litecoin, they might be worth nothing one day, but the technology is already being used. It's been used for quite some time, just not distributed. Blockchain, more than anything, made it possible for distributed networks. I mean, we had the Swift network, which was similar to this, and the Swift network was used by banks, and it was a network that only nodes could enter. So imagine a bank that has, hold on one second. Let's see, we got to type here. The IPFS.io, because this is actually interesting what IPFS can do. So yeah, Swift network was able to access from banks. So only basically like registered, or I mean, obviously it's really, really security wise, like hardened. It's almost like a closed network that has one access point to an open network. You know what I mean? They funnel everything through so they can, it's a centralized way of distribution. I mean, they trust each other because they pretty much work together. Money is for money. So anyways, not IPFS, but Swift network, I will say this, eventually started getting to the point where people mess with it a lot. Don't really publicize it as much, but Dubai's been up ridiculously, their bank. I believe it was through Swift network. They just rob them blind. All they do is they put in a command or something that says, hey, make this account, and then they make these accounts and funnel in money. And Swift believes that it's true, and that's kind of like more than anything a focal point for Bitcoin and its blockchain's ideas, at least, is that it's distributed. It doesn't need, it's trusted automatically. You don't need someone to tell you it's trusted. That, and if everybody says it's right, then it's right. And you can't do that as easily in a centralized network, because if you gave everybody access, they could be hacked from any branch. Any bank could hack the rest of everyone else's money. So Swift network has like a kind of a catch-22. I mean, it's great up until now when people learned how to mess with it, because there's not enough nodes. There's not enough people. I mean, you can't give access to the Joe Schmo's bank in Space Coast, Florida, or whatever it is. You know, I mean, if you did, then that guy might be like, you know, I only got $68 million here, but there's about a couple $100 trillion in that bank. I'm gonna go get that. You know, so yeah, it doesn't work that way. But if it was a blockchain network and we all carried it and we all used it for money, it's almost like a micromanagement system of the same concept, just it's where we all check. So if I tried to steal some money, it would be known that I did by somebody. You'd have hundreds of people that are like, that's not what he had last time. So yeah, it's pretty cool. So IPFS, the reason this is important is because IPFS is a file sharing source, and it's actually pretty cool. It's decentralized too. Let's see, HTTP downloads a file from a single computer at a time. Whereas with IPFS, what are they? You can distribute high volumes of data with high efficiency. So it's downloading bits and pieces from every computer that exists. It's essentially checking it as it downloads it. So like, let's say that you want to get google.com, right? You would go to your computer, and if you're part of the IPFS network, or you have the hash or the code that represents google.com, which is also another really interesting concept. Google, when put through the system that IPFS uses, which is a hashing system like SHA 256. I believe that's same hashing that they use for Bitcoin. But anyway, they take that hashing, and I mean, it's almost like the chance of repeating a single hash is like, there's as many possibilities as there is atoms in the universe to that level. So the chances that I'm going to repeat something, that I'm going to get the same result by doing anything other than entering the exact item. Like, you can't get two hashes with two separate objects, or you can't get one hash with two separate objects. You're going to have the same object every time once you put it through that conversion method. So anyways, if you took Google and all of its content, right? Let's say you took google.com, the software, the algorithms, the which files to use for storage or for content access, or how to find the content. You took that, then you hashed it to give you just a single string of numbers and letters, hexadecimal form. And you take that, and not only does that help you find it, it's its identifier, but it also helps you to verify it. So when you're checking for a file, you don't have to label them individually. You just throw them all into one storage container. And by doing that, they're already sorted because they have their identifier. The hash is what you look for. And when it finds it, because it looked for the hash, it knows that only one object can create that hash, and that would be the file. So as long as the hash matches the hash that you're looking for, then you have the correct file. And I mean, if you put a space, like, or a period, or you change the color slightly or anything like that, then that hash will be different. So when you're dealing with something as big as Google, you're going to have a tough time falsifying it. I'm not going to say it's impossible. Nothing is impossible. It's way more secure than what we use. And it makes it to where you can give everybody access to it. You can store Google's main files, everything that they have, everything they own, on every phone on Earth. Why couldn't you? What's the worst that could happen? Nothing. Everybody knows what it looks like. Everybody has it. You don't have the information. You don't have the file that made it. Not per se. Like, you can't open it up and be like, oh, I have access to all this. You know what I mean? You may have a proprietary app in your phone that makes it to where once you get that file, like, okay, let's say I search for the hash. I should probably visualize this. Let's say that I search for Google's hash, and it's XYZ. And I get XYZ. And I download it to my phone. I don't know what XYZ looks like. I just have google.com on my phone and everything that comes with it. Once it gets to my phone and I open it, it may have something that says, hey, you need to access, I don't know. You need to access some unencryption file. And then that file would unencrypt all the software that exists within Google. So Google could get everybody a copy of their software, but no one could use it unless they were willing to pay, or unless they weren't altering it, because then you wouldn't be able to interact with anybody else, because obviously they would check to make sure that you're also using the correct software, right? If you weren't using the correct software, I'm not going to trust you. You might have something that will lead me to the wrong place or blah, blah, blah. So basically, once it finds it, the hash, by hashing something, it not only classifies it, but it makes it easily verifiable. It's a what is it? Checksum. So if you have the content and you want to compare it to someone else's, you just compare hashes. If they're equal to each other, then you have the right content. If they're not, then you don't associate with that person. You don't interact with them because there's a chance that they're using malicious software or they have something extra, like a third party download that's inside of that. So you see, it's basically, it prevents malware, prevents third party unapproved software. I mean, it can be good and it can be bad. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, if you get to the point where you depend on something, pretty much you'll be in a position where you're forced to use it or pay for it or do whatever. So it's important to remember that. It's a double-edged sword. So anyways, it ultimately, IPFS is a system where it's peer-to-peer hosting. So like I could host a whole bunch of files, all the files that make up my website or something. And I can then share that with everyone else. And all the files have been shared to IPFS. So it's just one giant database that gives one unique identifier. We all agree on that only one object per identifier. So if you upload it to that, then all those files can be configured however you want. And they can't be altered, and if they are, then they produce a different hash. So basically, I could store my website on your computer with a single hash. All the other information would be stored on my computer or someone else's computer, just the actual files. I mean, you would want, personally, I would say it's important to actually have their nodes, full nodes. They have all the files or all the pieces. So like, let's say you have my website and it has 10 different other people's websites, but just pieces of them, right? So if I was able to just copy and paste little pieces of someone's websites, then it would get a new hash. Like that hash would exist within my hash. So it's stored on my computer. Everybody that uses it stores a copy of that original block or that original hash. So you don't have to waste storage space. It's extremely efficient. If there's 100 websites that use this toolbar or 100 browsers that use this toolbar, then if the website of I don't know what just happened, but I think my screen just disappeared. At least that's what it's looking like. It tends to happen. So Ethereum name service, let's see what's a good one. For example, let's go to this. I have a few of them, just say that. So if you go to mysense.eth, right, it brings you to a screen that says, I don't know if you can see this, but it asks you if you want to go to the address, and it's also accessible at mysense.eth. So I can go to mysense.eth, and it brings up my ridiculously long address. Oh, wow, man. Ethereum just plummeted. Holy moly. It just went down 266. I think they were like 360 yesterday. That's insane. Don't look at my stuff. But it's there. I did do that. I registered something. Go see what the website is. Steal it. Man, Ethereum just tanked, man. I mean, I only had a little bit in there, but seriously, that's insane. All right. So, anyways, basically, these are, I mean, almost the exact same. Seriously, almost the exact same as an IP address. When you go to, let's see if we can find a resolver. Let's go back. So this is how it works. Basically, this is where I went to the auction to buy it. If you can't see this, I'll explain it. You go to an auction, you get it, you bid on it. No one knows you bid on it. It's not like buying a domain name. I mean, unless someone specifically wants to bid on your domain, they type it in, then they'll bid on it. Otherwise, they don't know you're buying it. They don't know anything about it until it's basically you bid on it. They reveal the bid, and then whoever is higher wins. The lower person gets their money sent back. You put in the max you'd spend, and that's it. So the resolver, the way it works is there's a contract, which is a smart contract, and the smart contract basically is, if you can see it, let's see. Okay, so the smart contract would look like this. This is our code right here, and it's written in Solidity. And what Solidity does is it's basically close to OS, like an operating software in a sense, but a higher level one. It's not like it's not like written only in assembly code, or, you know what I mean? It translates very high level concepts, but it's able to do some pretty interesting things. So what this would do is this basically, let's see here, it indexes, so it's a database, the node, which is the person or someone who has all the, who has the entire blockchain for that bit of information. So like this index node would be me. I have all the information from my mysense.eth because I own it. So if I add anything to it, I could let other people use it to say or access it, but I would always be the full node. There would only be one full node, and that would be me, because I can change it. So they index who is the owner of the full node, which would be who owns the wallet, which would be me, as long as I have my information that I can access it with. Yeah, so then they index the name, which is your bytes 32 hash. So that's the name ran through a hashing algorithm, which comes out weird letter, a hexadecimal. string, and that's the string name is indexed, which is the easy to read name. It's super simple. It's like a giant database, honestly. I'm not going to go through these that in depth, but basically it's just a giant database, a key pair system, no different than a wallet. You give an input and they give you a predetermined output. And then you have access to it as long as you're stored as the owner. And then it can be updated depending on what you change, like what you add to it or what information you take from it. They have ABI, the binary interface, which is basically all the push codes. Like it's just the codes that they use. It kind of makes it universal. It gets rid of the operating system. If Windows were to use these push codes, then it would work. If Linux was to use them, it would work. They know the push codes. You know what I mean? They know this binary for the most part. They don't have to, they basically agree that this means this and that means that. So it's a giant agreed upon database. And it's possible because distributed technology has that hashing algorithm that makes sure that there's one consensus as to what is the most agreed upon, what do you call it? Interpretation for each piece of data. So each address belongs to this person. As long as everyone agrees, it works. It has this much money in it. As long as everyone agrees, it works. If you have the majority of processing power, then you can actually overthrow it. Ironically, if you have the majority of money in the world, chances are you can overthrow it. Even funnier than that, though, is the fact that with Bitcoin and blockchain, I can copy your money or your blockchain or your whatever. I can fork it in GitHub. And when I do that, if everybody says, hey, this guy took over, he had all the Bitcoin and he kept changing the price to this much, and it was making my life really hard because everything was just getting more and more expensive because Bitcoin was more or it was less or whatever. And if everybody said, hey, look, let's make our own and call it Bitcoin number 2, then that person who had all the money no longer has all the money. If they wanted to have all the money, they'd have to buy all of your Bitcoin too. And if they did, they wanted 2 options. You can either go back to Bitcoin 1, seeing as he sold it all, or you could just make a new one, and then you have to buy that. It's a system that if people understood how it worked, man, could change a lot of things. It's not able to be stopped, you know? If everybody got together and worked together and said, hey, let's agree on something, then it would work. But the world is not so good at agreeing on stuff, so it tends to not happen. Probably going to stop this broadcast for a second because it was way off topic. I was supposed to talk about something else and I forgot. So I'm going to end this, and then probably in like 10 minutes, I'm going to start another one. All right. If anybody's listening, because I can't see my chat, bye. Subscribe.